are sitting at the back, we just wanted to make an announcement that we do have another venue by the chapel where you'll be able to sit and be comfortable. This full procession will be streamed through to that venue as well, just so that you're not standing throughout the entire session. We're still on time for 5 for 5, so please get comfortable. As much as possible, share your stories about this wonderful place and about Tebello. And we will be kicking off at 5 promptly. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you once again for making the time to be here to honor Tebello. We appreciate that you made it on time. It allows us to kick off with the program. The Motsoane family has arrived, as well as the Forbes family. They will be joining us shortly, and we will then start formally with the proceedings. It is at that point that I will introduce myself and we can start formally with the program. Sorry for the heat, but you know, it's game day, so you gotta get ready for game day, no matter the conditions of the pitch or the court. Today is gonna be a tough day, but it's going to be a beautiful one. I hope we can all dig deep and find it in our hearts to be in this space to celebrate. Whilst we do mourn and grieve, today is about celebrating the life of Tebello. And so when we start the proceedings, I want you to dig deep, dig deep, dig deep, but also allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to be emotional. This is an emotional experience. And let's be here for each other. So yeah, we're just waiting for the families to join us in the hall, and then we will start with the formal proceedings. Thank you very much. Um, Good evening to the Motsoane family. Good evening to the Forbes family. We acknowledge you for attending this very difficult Um, we, we thank you for joining us for this very difficult but important occasion. My name is Tebello, and I'll introduce myself more formally into the program. But we just wanted to acknowledge your presence here. Without you, this would not be possible. And so I would like that this room, as well as the spillover venue, if we can just observe a moment of silence, both for Tebello, Motsoane, as well as Keenan Forbes. A minute of silence, please. Thank you very much. So, I want to try something else. The moment of silence is important for us to reflect on why we are here. The two gentlemen who we have lost were icons, they were game changers. And the speeches and the commentary that will follow will be there to validate things that we already know about the lives and the contributions that they made. And so I'd like you to join me in doing something else as part of the acknowledgements. For a minute, I'd like us to clap for these two gentlemen. Please join me in clapping for a minute in acknowledging these amazing people. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we've got a nice balance in the room and we can kick off our program. As mentioned, my name is Tebello. I actually used to come to the school. Tebello was my 2-year senior. So, I used to watch him and his class, I think it was the class of 2000. And we used to emulate them because they were the pioneers. They were teaching us how to navigate the space of being beautiful, black, confident, intelligent, etc. And it didn't stop there. We played sports together. I played basketball in the first team with some of the guys and went on to partner in various ventures with Tibello in the creative space. But for me as Tebello to have this honor to speak and to manage the program today, I would like to share with you some of the wisdom that I've learned from Tebello's life. Tebello was a powerhouse. And I'm going to use basketball anecdotes because I think you will connect. The man was a baller through and through. And the first one that I'll start with was Tebello was obsessed with practice. If you think about a free throw, right? A free throw in a game is a moment where the game stops. You get to be with the hoop by yourself and you get to shoot the ball. But you have to practice. You have to spend time honing your trade. And despite the fact that nobody is challenging you for the ball, you still have the opportunity to work hard and score. And Tebello was about practice. Whether it was about basketball, whether it was about food, whether it was about the entertainment industry, he took his time to practice. And that's one of the things that I learned about Tebello. Down to the T. I mean, even just dressing up for today, I was like, yo, Tibz. What would Tibz say, Tebza? Are you looking neat enough? Are you looking dapper enough? Because he used to look good all the time. And that was Tebello. He took pride in himself and the work that he put into the world. And I think that's some of the stuff that we will share today. So we're going to kick off with a prayer. I think at the moment, if I can ask the choir to come up and come in, just so that after the prayer we can go straight into song, and then we can continue with the program. As they come in, one of the other things that I learned from Tebello was about the slam dunk. The slam dunk is about aggression. It's about attacking as a form of defense. And Tebello used to attack his goals with such precision. To Mama and Papa, I'm sure you know this about your son. Tebello used to focus and attack his goals with precision. Whilst he may be quiet in his space and not in the public in terms of the work he's doing in the back end, whenever he went for his goals, he would slam dunk them. And that's the excellence that we got to learn and see from Tebello's life. So far we know about the free throw and we know about the slam dunk. And those were the things that remind me of Tebello. If I can ask for Father Mukesh to come and join us and take us into prayer, and that will be followed by a contribution from the Sacred Heart School Choir.
We become quiet in our hearts, in the spirit, in this hall, in this continent, and in this world. As we become aware of why we are here, O loving Creator, you are the giver of life. You share your love with us. As we gather here at this heavy moment for the families, for the friends, for the school community, we are aware that you are with us, even in this difficult time. Support the family, the friends with your love, as they share their pain, the sorrow, but also the moments of joy. Help us to support them in whichever way we can, with our prayers, with our love, our thoughts. And we thank you for the life of Tebello, Kiana, for our own life, as we think and we share and we mourn the loss of our brothers, of sons, of friends, that we are aware even in this loss and in this sorrow, you are always with us. Even if it's painful, you always support us, even though at times we don't feel it. But we are aware that you are the creator of life and love. Thank you for bringing us together even in these difficult times. But let it help us that you can help the families and our friends. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Over to the choir, please.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you. As the choir exits, we're going to have our first speaker for the day. Mrs. Blankensee, if you can join me up on stage. Mrs. Blankensee is the head of school at Sacred Heart College, but she also had the pleasure of teaching Tebello in one of his classes. We look forward to hearing about her. Sacred Heart is an institution. So many of us have memories. I graduated here in 2002 and still come back to be connected to this amazing school. It's here that we found our identity and we found our freedom of expression, and we will always be eternally grateful for this institution. Mrs. B, if you can join me on stage.
To everyone, and I want to take this opportunity to express our condolences to two families who've lost people too soon. And so our thoughts and prayers as the Sacred Heart community are with the Forbes family and especially with the Motsoane family. I don't think I ever called Tebello Tibz in my class. For those of you that know me as the teacher, I probably called him Tebello. And when I received the really tragic news on Saturday morning, immediately I had this picture of Tebello sitting at the back of the class with Zolani. Not sure what they were doing there. I hope they were learning biology. And Floni and Zoya, and of course, the rest of the class. And Tebello was this incredible gentle giant. He had this ability to just make people feel welcome. And I have to be quite honest, this particular group, the basketball boys who hung out together, teasing some of the girls, who I have to say gave as good as they got, which is something that is important, have been an incredible model of what Sacred Heart College is about. Because as soon as we heard this incredibly sad news, immediately the friends were rallying. And so, yes, the tragedy of the untimely passing of Tebello brought them together, but in actual fact, they had been together for many of them right from grade 1. And so Tebello was part of a community that knew how to have fun, sometimes naughty, mostly playful, but always respectful and aware of their place and their privilege. And what I particularly love and respect about the class of 2000 is just the friendships that have lasted for so long. I know Sylveni's mom, Peliwe, often lamented this incredible friendship because she just thought, sure, these boys, what are they up to? And she was kind of hoping that you guys would grow out of it. But I'm really glad that you didn't. because the fact that you are here now to pay tribute to a remarkable person who, in his own gentle way, has made a difference in the world. And that's what he wrote in his matric profile. We have a tradition at Sacred Heart where the students speak about their nicknames. And of course, Tibz was there. And then his sports, basketball, which I know Roger King will speak a little bit about later on. And Tebello has already given us some thoughts about the importance of basketball. But then he wrote ambition to make a difference. And that's exactly what Tebello did. He made a difference to the individual who was next to him, who arrived at school not sure how to go about and navigate that day. He made a difference to his friends by just being that gentle giant. He made a difference on the basketball court. He made a difference in our lives here at Sacred Heart College because in his own gentle, caring, considerate way, he has impacted on all of our lives. I know that people are going to speak about his time once he has left school. But my memories of Tebello and his peer group is one of love, of being brothers and sisters to one another. And the fact that on a Wednesday night, when the alumni come to play basketball, it doesn't matter if you were part of the class of 2000. It doesn't matter if you're the class of 2014. My son was made to feel welcome and show up whenever he wanted to at those basketball games. And that's the family spirit of Sacred Heart College. So I want to wish you all strength and to remember those wonderful memories, to appreciate the incredible impact that Tebello had on each of our lives and the difference that he made in the world. Thank you.
Also my biology teacher, so she has spent many years educating and leading the school, and we thank you for the contribution. I think teachers make such a huge contribution in society. They are the unsung heroes of this, world and this country. They are the giants on which shoulders we stand. So thank you for that, Mrs. B. As you spoke about Tebello's statement in the magazine, what comes to mind is, for me, Tebello was the personification of shifting from success to significance. He achieved so much in his life, but at some point he decided he wanted to be significant in people's lives. And so he measured his time, he measured the spaces he wanted to contribute in, and by so doing, he was able to have such a huge impact on the world. And I think as you listen to these speeches, I think that's what will come across. I'm going to now invite two of Tebello's friends. We're going to start with Zoya Sisulu, joined by Michael Cross. They will speak separately, but if they can come up together. Thank you very much.
I'd like to welcome to the stage the beautiful lady. I like this young lady because when he came out, he came up with a phrase. He went from ashes to Christ. I like that. So everybody around.
take instruction from Tebz. It's a tough day to be here. The circumstances are hard, but I'm going to dig deep to share some of my fond memories of Tibz. Ms. Blankensee touched on something that's so important. Sacred Heart is much more than a school. It's a community, it's a family, and very central to many of our lives. I think as we started to fill the hall, we saw old faces, old friends and classmates and teachers, and kind of rung that bell of why this place is so important to us. And Tibz was one of the people that were great at bringing us all together and creating platforms for us to kind of forge these bonds that keep the Sacred Heart family so tightly knit, and one indeed that makes a difference in people's lives, as was his ambition, but is also one that we are extremely proud of. I will start kind of way back when. We were all little kids when I came to know Tebello. There used to be this habit of like an Olympic sprint and stampede every time we saw Brother Joseph's powder blue little Conquest drive through the gate. Mostly because we were never in the orchard as we're supposed to be. I haven't figured out why we had this allergy to being in the orchard like we're supposed to be. But those are some of the memories and times I remember starting to forge my relationship and friendship with Tibz, and really what has been a lifelong friendship for myself. Tibz started here, so by the time I had come to the school, he was a very established Sacred Hearter. He, in those days, was more fondly known as Tebello. And as I started my career at the school, I was kind of intrigued by this Tebello character. But he had been here a long time, and some of us who were kind of getting used to this new multiracial South Africa had started at the school a little after him. But he saw it in his usual kindness to kind of take us along for the journey. An amazing story that was shared by Thabo Mofokeng, who says when he arrived here in 1991 in the same class as Tibz, in Mrs. Rainsford's class. Mrs. Rainsford was quite tough on the best of days, very intimidating looking lady. So Thabo's recollection is that he didn't speak much English and could kind of barely wander beyond his comfort zone of good morning, my name is Thabo. But Tibz, being kind of generous of spirit, was always kind to help him along, not only with his homework and comprehension, but also in the sense of whispering the answers across to Thabo as Mrs. Rainsford stared him down from the front of the classroom. And I think that really is a very typical type of Tibz move. One is his generosity of spirit, and two, always maintaining street credibility was absolutely critical. Tibz was kind, he was honest almost to a fault, and he was very genuine. He was gentle, as Mrs. Blankensee said, and he made us feel welcome. And these traits he carried through the various areas of his life, and certainly I observed them consistently as we kind of moved from primary school to high school to varsity. He had this kind of aura, Tebello, this fellow, that just attracted people, and it just happened that wherever he was, there were kinds of groups of people adoringly around him. And this is kind of the start of, the formation of his legions of fans and ones that he carried all throughout his life. And, as the playgrounds shifted and changed, he still had this drawing ability to attract people. As we moved into high school, Tebello transitioned to Tebello, and then ultimately became Tibz. And that's obviously lasted for the rest of his life. Tibz was a scholar of all things cool. He was the go-to guy. There was nothing he did not know. He started in high school to kind of enjoy and exhibit his love of the arts. And so when not performing on the basketball court, he would take up any opportunity to be on a stage. He always assumed the role of creative director, and it's kind of coming full circle to be in the spaces, because often when in drama class, we'd be sent out with kind of assignments. He would direct us in these courtyards and on this stage. I think just a start of him starting to find his creative spark. McQueen reminded me of a time in Standard 8, and much to the point I was making, we had been sent out from biology class, thank you, Mrs. Blankensee, to put together a little performance around photosynthesis, who would have thought. And so in our little group, as Ms. Blankensee had said, we kind of assumed the backbenchers of the biology class particularly. We came up with this photosynthesis rap to which Tibz provided like the backing track. Amazingly, Mrs. Blankensee was amused enough to give us an A, but that is kind of like the ultimate Tibz thing, just infusing his sense of art and culture and having fun into everything that we did. He would also often call on McQueen, so she had an amazing voice, but wasn't so much kind of part of like the drama crew, so she had to be coaxed into performing. And he would always call on her whenever, it would be at camps, at talent shows, assemblies, and that kind of thing. For her, these interactions in her mind are what solidified her love of hip-hop that was developed and nurtured by Tibz. But these, for me, were undoubtedly the formative years of show love entertainment, to which we were all too happy to be Tibz's guinea pigs. As Ms. Blankensee had alluded to, he wrote something very kind of poignant in our yearbook. At 18, I hate to say it, but you haven't formed very worldly views. But he was able, kind of in his old soul romanticism, to provide a very insightful, very forward-looking, very mature quotes and ambitions. His quote, "A thing of beauty is a joy forever." And that's exactly how he lived his life. He was committed to the pursuit of the finer things in life and the things that really brought him joy. Tebz mentioned his meticulous dress code. He loved to share like his new discoveries with us, and always sharing with us the latest music, fashion trends, whenever we had like a free period. When we finally left these hallowed corridors, as I refer to it, Tibz kind of carried this magnetism and poise into the next phases of our lives. So as we started in the early days at Wits, what was kind of like a small school community of people that had known Tebello a long time and had been his adoring fans, he managed to convert that into quite a movement as we transitioned into varsity life and carried that magnetism into our days at Wits. As we started in the Joburg nightlife, as we started to explore, I guess, that part of our coming of age, we always had the privilege, Hloni, Tando, and I, of being regulars on Tibz's guest list. And whenever we'd arrive, I guess, to the steely bouncers and the hostesses, loved to name drop and say, "We're on the guest list with Tibz." It was a thing. When we entered these spaces, socializing, having fun, and in the way that Tibz does, in how he brought us together, he would kind of hover around us in his hostess with the mostess type of way. He looked after us, and that was a very important characteristic of the spaces that he created. He created a sense of safety and comfort and places where we could really let our hair down. Many of us in this room, fortunately I can't see any faces from here, so I shan't name names, but Tibz kind of holds on his chest many of our deep, darkest secrets of many a wild night in the Joburg streets. I remember a little kind of later in our adulthood, Tibz started hosting brunches at Le Creatifs in Bryanston. And I joined one of these brunches, as it were. My name was still on Tibz's guest list. And this is really when he started to transition to Chef Tibz, which was an amazing thing to watch. It was always amazing how he kind of was focused on his goals and kind of became a master. You know, his sense of mastery, I think, was always amazing to observe. So we walk into this venue. It was before it had been rebranded, and outside, I'm sure it said the South African Culinary School. And I thought, geez, this is quite a thing. I know Tibz is, you know, into this food thing. He's kind of morphing into Chef Tibz, but I found that such an interesting space for him to occupy and for him to own in such a way. And it reminded me as well the audacity and audaciousness of his visions and his creativity. It was also just a reminder, another step in the sense of Tibz's journey. He was setting another trend, and as we had often followed him, kind of followed him into this journey as well. He had set trends with his parties, with his suits, his cigars, even his beard was a thing. He was setting the trend in terms of unearthing talent, art, and fine wine. And, you know, this fine dining thing had become what was next in Tibz's movement. And always done in so much calm, quiet confidence, and with swagger that you cannot handle. Our friendship traversed our school days, as I mentioned, and transformed into adulthood. One of my more recent interactions was him telling me how he had bumped into my mother. They exchanged the normal pleasantries, and he kind of went on to say, you know, your mother gave me that look. And I said to him, what look? I knew exactly what look he meant. And he confessed to me that she still made me feel like a little school kid. And it was a little amusing because in my own life, I guess, Tibz had also assumed that space. he would, from whatever corner of room or corner of club, kind of give you this disapproving look across the room when you were stepping out of line. I think it was more likely linked to kind of starting to compromise his own street credibility. But he definitely kept us in check, and he made sure that we perform. Yeah, it is hard. It is hard to be here. And I think, again, always being ahead of his own time, Tibz goes before us once again. As difficult as it is to let him go, as difficult as it is to accept these circumstances and reality, for me, it's important that we not hold him back. I personally will revel in the memories of all the fun that we had and celebrate a life well lived that was filled with beauty and joy, and a life of immense impact on many people across the board, some that have known him a short time and some that have known him a long time. And all I want to say is go well, my friend. Mr. and Mrs. Motsoane, this is a demonstration of your beloved son's community. It's a reflection of what the love and kindness he poured into people. And I hope you've had in this week and going forward, I'm certain you will have a taste of the kind of community that he created. Our deepest condolences to you, but Zikhala Nani, he was a joy to us, and we thank you for sharing your blessing with us all. Thank you.
Um, my name is Michael Cross. I've known Tibz literally all my life. We came to the school. Although he was a standard below me, we really formed a really strong friendship that branched out and really developed post-school. I've written a little something here for him. Excuse me for reading it, but I think it's the only way I get through this. And it's the only way I believe I can do his memory justice. Tebello, my friend, my brother, affectionately known to most as Tibz. Our journey started back in primary school at this very school. A skinny, soft-spoken boy befriended a chubby kid with a big personality that just grew and grew. There was something magical about the school because the bonds we formed with people are lifelong. There's a sense of community that developed during those years. It wasn't until varsity that our friendship truly blossomed. Our varsity years cemented our friendship as we navigated through early adulthood. Nothing is guaranteed in life, but believe me when I say there was guaranteed laughter in his presence. A born storyteller, he had the talent of narrating the details of any story in a way that brought it to life. He was an advisor, and although not all his advice was taken, I loved that he provided a very different perspective. A personality bigger than life itself, you felt his presence when he entered a room, even though many times that was not his intention. People were naturally drawn to him. He had a way with people, a way with words. I consider myself blessed for all the time that we were given. He was like my little big brother in many ways. There are many in this room that will have fond memories of the letters DVK. DVK was legendary, facilitator of good times, protector of all within. DVK was part of our tribe and our Minister of Transport, a white, fuel-efficient Toyota Corolla with a booming sound system that I owned. Tibz was a regular visitor to that ministry, often in the passenger seat. The route was often from Observatory to Edenvale, where he lived with his parents, to Sandton, to Four Waves, to Rivonia, or wherever the road took us, and then back home in the early hours. Whether for work or to connect with other friends, it was a trip I made over and over again without thinking about it, because the reward was time spent with him. Never one to settle, Tibz carved his own path and reinvented himself over and over again. Show Love provided the platform for many DJs, promoters, and artists to launch their own careers. Show Love launched the career of the late Keenan Forbes and facilitated in various ways the growth of many others. Show Love turned empty, unknown venues into the most popular establishments. What began as hip-hop parties turned into an agency that was multifaceted. Show Love connected people, gave us all a sense of belonging. Show Love was Tibz, and all Tibz knew was to show love. Tibz then transitioned into being a chef, and in one of his interviews he said, "Sitting at a table is always an opportunity to connect. This is who he was." I spent the better part of this morning scrolling through old pictures. I was saddened that we didn't document more, but also glad that at the time we were truly living in the moment. We've come so far, my friend, and it breaks me to acknowledge that this is the end of our journey on earth. Tibz is never one to let anything get him down for too long. In the few times we spoke about the eventuality of death, he wanted us to celebrate our lives, reminisce the great times together. Tibz, my brother, in your death, a part of me has died and gone with you. So wherever you are, I also go. You are not alone. We have all lost a friend, a brother, a son. To Tebello's parents, your boy loved you with everything he had. Many here have never met you, but know all about you because he made sure he told the world at every opportunity, be it birthdays or wedding anniversaries. I'm truly sorry for the pain you are going through. But know this, Tebello was truly loved by many, and his memory will continue to live through all of us. Heartfelt condolences to the Greater family, and condolences to the Ford's family who have also lost a son. Rest now, my brothers. In death as in life, we stand together, always a family, always a team. The brotherhood never dies. Thank you.
Thank you to Michael and Zoya for those heartfelt words. I've got two requests. With such a magnificent human being who lived such a big life, it's difficult to try and encapsulate the experiences in a short space of time. But if the speakers that come up here can indulge me with trying to just get through their messages as quickly as possible. I know it's a difficult ask, but we are running slightly behind time. That said, I do ask for the indulgence of everybody who is connected to us, whether digitally and in this room. We are doing our best to make sure we honor Tibz whilst respecting time, but we will take a little bit longer than we expected, and we appreciate your patience in that regard. Up next, we've got someone who made a huge contribution to Tebello's life. If you know anything about Tibz, basketball had a huge contribution to the person that he became. And one of those people that contributed to his love for basketball and his ability to thrive in the sport was Mr. Roger King, who for many years was our basketball coach. So I'm going to ask Mr. Roger King to come up on stage and share some words. As he comes up, I want you guys to look at this t-shirt. This was the skipper. This was, when we wore this, the enemies knew that Sacred Heart was coming. And when we got onto the court, we used to sing, Sacred Heart, what time is it? It's time to get live. It's time to represent. Sacred Heart, what time is it? It's time to get live. It's time to represent. And then that starting five would hit the court, and it was game over. Mr. Roger King, over to you, sir.
Tebello, thank you very much. When you started early on today, I just thought maybe you'd be telling all the basketball anecdotes and taken away from me, but I do have a few about Tebello. So firstly, good evening, Mr. and Mrs. Motsoane, family and friends. It's not always easy standing up here under the circumstances, but what we are doing today is celebrating the life of Tebello. I started coaching Tebello in the late 90s when he was a high school student here at Sacred Heart College, which has been over 20 years since I met this fine, young, enthusiastic basketball player. Some of my memories have faded, but some still shine strongly through, especially around me coaching Tebello, as he was an individual that you wanted in your team, and I can also say, in your life. In the first few seasons, Tebello was like a sponge as he took in as much knowledge and information he could with regards to basketball and how he implemented it during practices and at game time. It was an absolute joy to watch as he was willing to learn and play his role as a team player. Tebello developed very quickly over the years, and his love for basketball showed through in how he conducted himself on and off the court. His respect for the game, respect for his fellow teammates, referees, and more so his opponents. No matter the situation on the basketball court or what the scoreboard showed, he would always give 100% of himself when playing. Tebello never saw himself as better than others, but always as an integral part of the team, and the role he played was all for the benefit of his fellow ballers and the team dynamics. I see many of Tebello's teammates here today, and many will recall the tournaments we played in. The American International School of Johannesburg tournament was one of the major basketball highlights for us every year, and many a final that we contested was probably the most exciting games we played in and spectators got to watch. The camaraderie over that weekend was the best I had seen among Sacred Heart school teams. This team was virtually unbeaten and one of the most successful first teams I had the honor of coaching, and as a reward and incentive, we got to go on tour to Swaziland. I can say a lot of the drive and motivation didn't come from me, but there was the duo of Ruli and Tebello who ensured that all their teammates stayed on the straight and narrow and that nobody would jeopardize their chances of going on tour. Tebello was the glue that kept this team together in good times and when we were looking like losing. He motivated his school colleagues to believe in themselves and fight for every ball and every point. As the seasons progressed and games played, Tebello, in my eyes, became the unofficial assistant coach of the team, as he always ensured the team kit and the team was ready for game ahead, and it would be him that I went to help choose all-star players from other teams that he played against. We even discussed a few plays that he wanted to try out, which we openly discussed and implemented. What I remember, but often try to forget, is when Tebello wanted to have a three-point shooting competition with me, and often on occasion he would beat me. He was competitive, but not arrogant. As the years went on and his confidence grew, he'd also help me coach some of the younger Sacred Heart teams, and one could see the joy and satisfaction in his eyes when a move came together. Those young players were also in awe of him and looked up to him, and many wanted to play like him. Tebello matriculated in 2000, but occasionally came back to school to watch games and shoot around, and we would have some fun banter together. I left Sacred Heart in 2008 and opened my own business, and was fortunate to have our paths cross again as he came into my coffee shop, and it was as if things hadn't changed. He was still the respectful and gentle soul I had known as a schoolboy basketball player. I hear that quite recently, Tebello had been coming back to play with some of the old boys, and I wish I had known, as I would like to have gone one-on-one with him again. Tebello, Tibz, Motsoane, you were and always be poetry in motion to me and the Sacred Heart basketball boys who knew you on the court. May your soul rest in peace.
Thank you, Mr. King. One of the things Tibz was known for was trash talking on the court. And what he would do after he hit his three-pointer was just, make sure you see the flick of the wrist. And then as he jogs back, he just tells you, poetry in motion, baby. Poetry in motion. If we can prep the tribute video, as we also welcome a family member from the Motsoane family. We'll play the video just to bring some additional light into the room, and then we'll welcome Mr. Stephen Akitledi to come and share some words from the Motsoane family. If we can please play that first tribute video.
Tibz, or coach, I should say. I could tell quite a few stories, but I think I'll just stick to one that sticks out to me the most. I was 11 years old and you had a CD Walkman, and I walked up to you and I said, "What are you listening to?" And it was Jay-Z's Blueprint that had just come out. And you gave me the CD and you said, "Take this home and listen to it every day. This thing has the keys to life. Everything you need to know about life is in this album." And why I'm telling this story is because although we listened to Jay-Z, we actually grew up watching you as well. Live out your own blueprint and create your own blueprint, whether it was you and Ruli with the creative recreation sneakers, Head Honcho, Let the Record Show. I think I had the first Head Honcho cardigan. But from that to Show Love, the events, the parties, everything you did, all the moves you made, we watched, and we're still watching, because I know you're up there making more moves. And with a cigar Romeo in your mouth, as you said. So we appreciate all the life lessons, the gems, the jewels. And the marathon continues. I've got you up there with everyone. Nipsey Hussle, all the people that we look up to, all the people you said we should listen to that give game. And I think that you gave us the game. And we appreciate and love you for that.
I know Tibz since he was 14 years old. We had met at Johannesburg Basketball Academy, known as JBA, where he was referred to the academy by his coach, Roger. And Roger often said that Tibz and Ruli were the great experts to join the academy out of Sacred Heart College. Tibz was a trash talker on the basketball court, a very lively guy who always let you know after he scored a basket. He would just run past you and say, poetry in motion. We went on to play basketball together at a tertiary level. That's where he was also working on his brand Show Love, where he was a kingmaker and a hitmaker in the entertainment industry. He also then, of late, started Chef Tibz, which was a tastemaker and also introducing people to culinary experiences. Tibz for me was a hard worker. He always worked with zeal and passion in pursuit of his dreams. He always lived outside the box. I was always amazed at how he accomplished his goals with effortlessness and a swagger. I'd like to say, Tibz, you'll be greatly missed. Though you're gone, you live long in our hearts and minds. I'd also like to send my condolences once again to the Motsoane family.
I've known Tibz for over 20 years now, from the hard court of the inner city where we played basketball to the late night studio sessions where we would storyboard our lives through music, the stages where we performed it, and ultimately the boardrooms where we try to eke out a livelihood for ourselves. Tibz was a visionary, a kingmaker, and a cultural savant. More qualified people will speak of his achievements as an entrepreneur. But for me, Tibz brought a dignity to this thing of ours. He was able to translate what happened on street level to the suits and the administrators that ran entertainment in South Africa. I pray God have mercy on his soul. I pray that he soothes his parents. And the often stated cliche that parents should not bury their kids tragically applies here. Mostly because children are seeds. You plant them, you grow them, you love them, you prune them until they become a tree. And Motsoane, I hope it brings you comfort to know that when you look out into the landscape of South African popular culture, that you see the fruits of this tree. We are the fruits of this tree. So, bonne journée, mon ami. À vous, santé.
Yeah, believe in yourself. Live the life you deserve. That's how we do.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to start my speech off by giving our heartfelt condolences to the Forbes family. It's also very vital to remember that we've lost two pioneers of diverse industries. The Motsoane is mourning with you, and we're truly saddened by your loss. My name is Stephen Kitledi. Asohoa Tebello was my cousin, more specifically first cousin. But this gentleman that we're celebrating today was my brother. I'm totally gutted by this tremendous loss that he's left us. I don't even know where to begin. As I look upon here and see his name written out, Tebello Tibz Motsoane, I would like to start from the very beginning when I looked up to this older brother of mine. Tebello's full name is Tebello Eugene Motsoane. So when growing up, I had a bit of a pronunciation with his middle name. I was always like, yo, how are you doing, huge? How are you doing, my brother, huge? And that kind of stuck with me because those who knew Tibz was, figuratively speaking, larger than life growing up. You know, he was a chunky cap. So each time we met up with our fond greetings, I was like, yo, huge, what are we doing today? You know? The one thing I'm definitely going to miss is that engaging smile of his. Tibz had those warmest, inviting smiles I've ever come across. I mean, once you're with him and he started smiling, followed with that little chuckle of his, you know it's going to be all good. You know, it's going to be a good day. But let me share a story about those pearly whites. We were in Durban once, visiting my aunt and uncle. We were engaged in a hearty breakfast prepared by my aunt, and we got into a heated argument. As quick as he was on the basketball courts, he was quick to grab my finger and have a huge bite. And I was like, my man, what was that all about? It's like, yeah, next time I'll take your hand, my guy. So you must, each time I see that smile, I have flashbacks from those moments where he took a bite from my finger. So I look at it and I'm warmed by the memories, but some of them are painful, you know. That smile also got me into a lot of trouble growing up. My man, Tibz. Another incident when the Motsoanes were staying at Spraidview, they used to have this garage where we used to split our activities. I'm a soccer advocate. He was a basketball advocate. And there was this one afternoon we were seated, we're practicing our penalty shootouts. As Tibz is known to be a very passionate and enthusiastic person, he was determined not to beat me. He took his final penalty kick, and the ball went screaming through the window. All I remember was Tebello hugging me, and he was like, my dad is going to kill me. You know, you're the favorite nephew. Just take one for the team. So true to my word, I took one for the team. Uncle Sly, I know it's been years, but yeah. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. But he always had me with his smile, how he engaged people. And true to his word, we are here together, united, to come show Tibz love. And that's what he was all about. He was passionate in what he did. He was huge guy. He was a huge character. He was a huge personality. I stand before you gutted, but I take warmth seeing the individuals that he touched through it be his friendships, through his creates of art, through his profession, through his journey of life. Uncle Sly and Niniwe, you've lost a great son. You've lost a great son, individual, but ke mosebetsi wa hae mo. This is what Tibz was brought to earth to, and I'm grateful to be part of this auspicious occasion. And in closing, I would just like to say thank you guys for showing Tibz love.
Thank you so much, Abut Stephen. Them pearly whites, man. That glorious smile. You almost can feel it in this room. We're gonna miss you, Tibz. One of the things, Tibz taught me how to carry a man bag, and in that man bag was always lip ice. Tibz never had dry lips. It was just it's not on brand, B. Like, if I lip ice, boy, if I power bank, boy, huh? How can you be on the streets without the essentials? Come on, dog. Come on, dog. That was Tibz, man. Always laughing. It was incredible to spend time with Tibz. And the stories, wow. We're going to go into a section where we just hear from some of his friends, friends who, were with him from when he was like a kid, but also friends who helped him occupy the streets with confidence. You always need your crew. Your street cred doesn't matter if you ain't got your crew. And so I'd like to quickly invite Yusuf, as well as, can I also have Martin on the stage, please?
Most incredible, baby.
No problem. Hi, everyone. I'm Yusuf, and Tibz was my oldest friend. I think I was his oldest friend too, and so I think. So before there was Tibz the celebrity chef and Tibz the music producer or Tibz the club owner, there was 4-year-old Tibz who was with me in Yellow Group, and on hot days here at Sacred Heart, we would run around naked in the sprinklers. And he would hate it if I ever brought that up in front of people when we were adults, but that thing happened.
And there was 10-year-old Tibz who was the bravest of my friends and who was willing to go and speak to Michelle Rodriguez and tell her that I really liked her. And for a year, to negotiate on my behalf so that by the age of 11, I could get my first date at Eastgate Mall with Michelle Rodriguez. And there was 12-year-old Tibz whose parents dropped him off early at school, and we were playing kitchen skop. You guys know kitchen skop. And the ball went through my legs, and I ran, and I touched the place where I was supposed to touch, and I thought Tibz kicked me after I touched the thing. And so I kicked him back, and I had learned from my parents that if I'm doing something which is right, I can stand up for myself, and nothing bad's going to happen. So I looked at Tibz defiantly, and I still remember the look in his eyes. And he just dropped his shoulder and he gave me the best right hook I've ever gotten. Straight from Uncle Sly's training. And I started crying immediately, and I went to reflect in the bathroom on how some of the privileges I thought I had, maybe I didn't have. And how boys from Spruitview were definitely a lot tougher than boys from Parktown. But even with that memory of Spruitview, every time I drive past that place, I have this unbelievable warm feeling of friendship, because that's the first place I went to have play dates with my friend Tibz. And so then I left Sacred Heart, and Tibz, as everyone has said, he grew into this sort of larger-than-life character. And he was big, and he was good-looking, and he was charismatic, and he was hanging out with celebs. And so anytime I needed some sort of coolness by association, I was more than happy to introduce my new friends to Tibz. But no matter how big he became and how big of a persona he became, the only thing he ever greeted me, and I was speaking to my brother about this today, any of us, the only thing he ever greeted us with was that huge smile, with a huge hug, with sincere questions about how I was doing, about how my family was doing, and with proper love. And I felt like Tibz really valued the fact that we knew each other for so long, and we knew each other in that way, and he valued the friendship because it was so real. And I felt the same way. So, Uncle Sly, Auntie Rahab, I know nothing that can happen now can make this anything less than a tragedy, but I do want you guys to know that Tibz played a very special part in my life, and I really loved him. And I know you guys, in speaking to you this week, how much you loved him, and how proud you were of him. And I know he felt the same way, and I don't know many people in this world, in fact, I don't know any who have their parents' names tattooed on each of their forearms. And I know he wanted to look after you guys, and I hope that what you've seen this week from Tibz's friends, from us, from his family, that out of love and respect for him and out of love and respect for both of you, we are here now and we're going to be here for whatever you guys need. On that note, I also wanted to quickly just say to Ruli, who I've seen all the stuff that he's done this week. It's been really inspiring, the type of friend you have been this week, and I appreciate everything you've done, man. In closing, Tibz and I didn't like it that much, but Tibz would kind of treat me as his uncool younger sibling. And so, for example, 2 months ago, I saw him in Rosebank for the last time, and I had put green beads in my hair. And Tibz immediately obviously noticed this, and he was immaculately dressed as always. And he said, what's going on there? And I sort of stumbled into my explanation of wanting to express myself more creatively and how I was on a sabbatical. And Tibz just stood there looking at me, and he got that little grin that he got on his face. But he wouldn't give me anything. He just said, cool, man, cool. And he left me to squirm. So I thought it would be appropriate to do something that Tibz probably wouldn't think is cool, but would expect me to do and would probably appreciate, which is that on the count of 3, I wanted all of us to say at a volume that Tibz can hear, we love you, Tibz. It's okay? So on 3, 1, 2, 3. We love you, Tibz. Thank you, guys.
Good evening, all. to his beautiful family, his loved ones. I just jotted down some words. Show love. 8 letters, 2 words, both verbs. Alternatively, as we were taught in the 80s, doing words. Show love. 4 letters each, in balance, in harmony. A full sentence, but with only 2 syllables. Show. Show love. As an instruction, show love. As a question, a demand, a mantra, show love. Don't just claim it, but show it. In hip-hop, an industry that's often filled with bombast, excess, and grandiosity, Tibz built his brand on the pure principle of showing love. To show love and gratitude in life's grace and its challenges at its heights of life's gift and the inevitable depths of its crashing suffering, the most meaningful lesson our brother taught us was to show love. While I haven't the words to heal our collective sorrow, I take solace in knowing that it requires sadness to know happiness, absence to value presence. Someone once said that grief is love that has no place to go. As we continue to grieve, we are reminded it's a final show of love. In mourning, we are adrift, leaf life, like a whirlwind of grief. Like a thread through a needle, his death has gone through us all. May our remembrance of him be stitched in memories of our beloved Tebello, allowing healing. A fave of Tibz was Jay-Z, so I'll quote him here. He said, "If your clique is rich, your clique is rugged. We'll never fall, for we will be each other's crutches. To be a crutch to others is what we all are now. Our love for Tebello has brought us all here to draw strength from each other and in order to come to terms with his untimely passing. From a coming-of-age party in Houghton that forced JMPD to closed off-ramps, to Wits, to Norwood, to Cape Town and beyond, Tibz brought us together, hosted, always showing love. People met their business partners at Tibz's parties. They met people that they got married to and started families with. Careers were ignited from behind the DJ decks. Graphic designers, PR personnel, venue managers, owners, and countless rappers and artists shared a place at Tibz's table, always showing love. Johannesburg has lost a true gentleman. The city of gold has lost some of its sparkle. It's noticeably dimmer. Today there's no running from it. As the shock and adrenaline wear off, we must face the reality that he's no longer with us in the physical realm. Yet we must remind ourselves that he lives with us in our sacred collective memories through the lessons and ideas that he shared, the personal relationships that we share. He lives in all of us as we forged ourselves in reflection of each other. What happened is beyond comprehension. We will never understand it. We'll never fully recover. There will never be enough in confessions, explanations, jail sentences that would adequately explain or less still justify what happened. All we can do now is put our dearest friend, our brother, our uncle, our son, nephew to rest and show love. May his memory be a constant blessing to us all. Lala ngoxolo. Rest well, twin.
Hancho. I met Tibz a year or so after I had just launched a fledgling Cape Town-based streetwear brand called Head Hancho. Little did I know that he'd leave an indelible mark on not just my company, but on the entire industry. After spotting me in a Head Hancho tee on one of my trips to Joburg, Tibz inquired about my gear. He was curious about where and how it was made, what the plan was with the brand, etc. Right there and then he asked if we could get involved. I said, sure. Meeting Tibz was an interesting experience for me because prior to making his acquaintance, I had never met anyone cockier than I was. Not only was he cockier than me, he was also cooler than me. I was like, who is this guy? I was so intrigued by his larger-than-life personality. We also had a lot in common. It was actually very trippy. We bonded over so much. We bonded over Jigger and Rockefeller, The Wire, The Sopranos, cigars, basketball, and so many other things. Even though we never spoke about it, we both had a chip on our shoulders, which I guess made us appear aloof to people who didn't really understand us. We felt like the universe hadn't served us a fair hand, the way it had done with some of our friends. We had to scramble hard for every single little thing we got. Deep down, we both knew it was a swim or drown situation where our careers and ventures were concerned. Inevitably, this reality shaped our personalities and approach to life. My plan with Head Hunter was very simple. The goal was to create the #1 youth lifestyle brand in the country that served fresh gear, produced amazing events, and did super cool collabos with big brands. And it all had to be done with a kind of panache and flavor that was alien to people at the time. We truly wanted Hunchos to live progressively, as our motto stated. Armed with that crystal clear vision, Tibz and I went to work. Within a few months, we secured our first big retailer, Shesha. We were the first local brand to get in there, paving the way for many others that followed. And it was all down to Tibz's persistence. The way he locked down that account was so gangster, man. And I mean in a good way, you know? Shortly after that, I got a call from him that would change the trajectory of our brand. In his voice, he said, Nikki, I found this colored kid that could be good for us, boy. He raps and he's got a really good flow. He's also part of a production trio called Ivy League. I was like, okay, cool, I'll check him out. This kid turned out to be none other than AKA. I have to be honest. When I met AKA, I wasn't sure. He was super skinny, ashy, and had no visible swag. Like no swag whatsoever. But I trusted Tibz, so we signed him to the company, and he became Head Huncho's first Joburg ambassador. And the rest is truly history. Tibz was instrumental in those first couple of years in not just signing on talent, but also ensuring that we had product placement in the dopest music videos, magazines, TV shows, etc., etc. He worked really hard to keep us visible, and the videos on YouTube of artists such as Coolie China, Mugs, Reason, DJ Fanatic, DJ Speedster, Frankie, Lulo Cafe, and of course AKA, are testament to how relentless he was. We had great chemistry and we worked really well together. Sadly, our business chapter together did come to an inevitable end years later. Despite going our separate ways, we remained cordial and respectful towards each other. When I first moved to Joburg a few years ago, he was the first person I met. I took him out to lunch and I asked him to give me the lay of the land. We bonded over old times and shared our respective plans for the future. He was always hopeful and creating something new, just like me. Hearing of his tragic passing this past weekend left me shattered. It was made doubly worse because he went out with my other brother, Keenan Forbes, the very same guy that he brought to me in the early days those years ago. Like many at this memorial, I'm shattered at the senseless loss of life. I'm praying every day for the Motsoane family as well as the Forbes family. I pray that God lifts them up in this moment. I'm here for them. To Tibz, my brother, my boy, rest now, Bazala. You ran a good race and you've left your mark on the world. You were a true pioneer. Your legacy is the blueprint that you created that thousands of others will continue to follow until. Hancho till the casket drops. Love, your boy, Nicky Nasdaq.
Those were the words of Nick Kaoma, who was the co-founder and business partner to Tibz at Head Honcho. It blends a beautiful story of Keenan and Tibz. And again, we want to send our condolences to the Forbes family. Today we're talking about Tibz, but AKA was a powerhouse and an important contribution and institution in this country. And so whilst we talk about Tibz, we want you to know that some of the words that we share can and should be attributed to the life of Keenan. We are now going to ask Bradley Williams to come up to stage. And I'm also going to ask Chef Wandi to come to stage. The reason I'm bringing those two up at the same time is that Tibz was the master of the crossover, the pivot, and the layup. He was able to change and transform himself between different industries, to confuse the enemy, to move with speed and accelerate into greatness without you ever seeing that it was going to be possible. So you blink and your ankles are broken, and it's 2 points on the scoreboard. So on that point, Bradley Williams, if you can come and share your story about the entertainment industry, and Chef Wandi, if you can come and share about the food and wine industry. If you can come up, thank you.
Good evening. I think I'm the odd one out. I really didn't know Tibz for a very long time. Tibz was, for the most part, an industry acquaintance. I knew him as an artist manager and a really cool event promoter. Until about 2012 or thereabout, when we collaborated on some very special projects between Show Love and Motif Records. And that's when I got to know Tibz. The first impressions meeting Tibz, I got the sense of someone who had designed his life with meticulous detail. We met when working on production for songs for an artist called Reason, who was also from the East, from Katlong. Tibz, having roots in the East, took a liking to Reason, and the pair vibed and built a collaborative spirit, resulting in some of the most kind of magical music moments in our studio. Tibz had a gift in fostering creativity. He nurtured young artists and DJs to navigate the complex entertainment industry. With Tibz's affirmations and his infectious swagger, his artists' clients could walk onto any stage with the confidence of a star. We witnessed his brilliance and craftsmanship as Tibz guided artists and producers to ultimately create his vision for an era-defining hip-hop album, the All Love album, Tala. Stogie T and Tibz jointly crafted the album in studio. They brought together the entire community, including Double HP, Pro Kid, Ricky Rick, Muggs, Casper, Nadia, Questa, Cooley, and others. Today it remains one of the projects that mark the beginning of a new era in South African hip-hop music. I know Stogie T and the artists that contributed to the project are extremely proud of their achievement and the impact that Tala made beyond its time. Tibz had the ability to create awesome working environments, affirming artists' talents and motivating them to express their stories bravely in the booth and on stage. Imagine it was the same when Tibz gelled with his friends, Muggs, Capital, Tebello, Zakes, Chad, Milkshake, VG, Cypho, AKA, and many others. He would speak vividly of his vision of playing the game and how he wanted audiences to experience his vision and his music. This process revealed his strategic talents and his competitive nature. He would often draw metaphorically from the game of what I thought then was football, but it was actually basketball and other sports. Tebello's willingness to engage in a creative business opportunity was always motivated by the process. He knew how important this was to his team. Tibz coached artists and producers through the process to get to a win, speaking success into existence. With major achievements in a very short time, Tibz stayed humble, not allowing ego to get in the way of his wins. As competitive as he was, all things Tibz touched appeared to be simultaneously effortless and elegant. As we now know, and we've all always known, he personified swagger. There was no one else that could show up in the studio quite like Tibz did. Calm, composed, on time, and well put together. Of course, with a cigar in his hand. And whilst we all drank shots and popped bottles, Tibz was out there with a glass of red wine. The community of creatives around Tibz looked at him with admiration. Behind the facade of Super Tibz was rock-solid work ethic and creative talents. Tibz would be working, but his work wasn't understood as work, as I would understand work. His relationship with work was really pleasure. It was an art form in and of itself. The lines blurred between work and pleasure, blending into his social life. We're really, truly lucky to have had the privilege to work with him, with such a master craftsman. He paved the way for how we will define a purpose-driven life and the pursuit of success, whilst always showing love. Go well, brother. Rest easy.
Yeah, so I think this week has probably been the longest week for a lot of us. And we're all still trying to make sense of it. But I met Tibz back in 2018. And how we met was very special. And I think when we met, it immediately changed the course of his future and the direction that he would end up taking. So I'm a chef, and I own a restaurant as well, which was mentioned earlier on. And myself and Tibz met when he came to me, and he said if I could teach him how to cook, he could teach me how to be cool. And appeal to the media and to the market. And I think that day when we spoke, I think Chef Tibz was actually born. Yeah, and then Le Creatif as well was also born, which is a restaurant that I own. Myself and Tibz, you know, it feels like we've known each other for a long time, since childhood, and we've only known each other for about 4 years. But within that 4 years, we spoke so much, we met so many times, we mentored each other. He became an older brother to me. I taught him all the tricks in cooking. He learned very fast. I've never seen anyone learn like this. And as a result, I think he sort of put me on the map. He also coached me on how to get myself out there, which media to listen to, and always stay low and focus on the craft, and which market I should be focusing on. And this was all behind the scenes while everybody was looking at Tibz, the chef, grow. And about 3 months ago, just before our December holidays, we were in Cape Town together. And I'd never seen Tibz this happy in a very long time. And we had a deep conversation about how he felt the entertainment and the club and the music industry was something of the past, and he would like to leave it in the past. He considered it a dark past and considered the new future as something that brought light into the second part of his life. And as he compares everything to sports, we compared it to football, and we said this is now halftime. And he was quite excited for second half, which was supposed to begin probably this year. Unfortunately, our brother didn't make it to second half, but myself and representing the industry and the food and beverage industry that he influenced so heavily in a space of about 3 years is incredible. As long as I'm in the game, I'll make sure that his name lives on. I'll make sure that his legacy is always recognized, as long as I'm in the game as well. So I'd say, rest in peace, my brother. You are not forgotten. Thank you for inspiring us. And I'll make sure everything lives on through myself and my colleagues in the industry. Rest in peace.
Two pioneers that I have huge respect for, Bradley Williams and Chef Wandi. Just amazing to hear how your paths have crossed. But when you listen to the profile of Tibz and just how much he achieved, you start to understand the 10,000 hours that he put in to become this magnificent person who achieved so much in a short space of time. So thank you for that. I also had the same kind of meeting, Chef Wandi, by the way, where I was like, what's going to be our exchange? He was like, okay, teach me how to access corporate business through investment, and I'll teach you how to be cool. So that's the standard, if ever anybody wondered. That's what he brought to the table. He was Mr. Cool. If you can cue the next tribute video, please. And then we are going to welcome on stage Themba Mngadi as well as Uste Mabanga. If you guys can make your way up as the video plays. Thank you.
And Tebello to me was a great teacher. Our friendship was really wrapped in this really, really warm blanket of just laughter and fun and enjoyment and fresh perspectives on life. I think Tebello had walked many roads in life, and what I appreciated the most about him is that he really used the experience from all of those roads he walked. He used them to inform how he intended to live his life now, and he lived a very intentional life, always with the end in mind and with a long view perspective, always playing the long game, which was a favorite thing he used to say. And in doing that, I think through the many things he'd learned in life, he always would say to me that you should always back yourself. Never chase things, never chase anyone, never chase opportunities, but rather trust what you attract, because when you trust what you attract, then you can be sure that it's meant for you and that it's going to be a success. And I appreciate that about him. I appreciate calling him in times of stress or distress, and he would always come with another perspective that I never really thought about, and had this incredible ability to just calm your nerves. I mean, he was a very calm person naturally. but that really permeated through every aspect of him, you know, and it wasn't just something that came through momentarily. It was really consistent, and just generally as a person, he was very consistent, very dependable, and incredibly reliable. And as much of those things really depict the character of a very strong and incredible human being. I think what made him most remarkable is how he didn't take himself seriously, how he was just such a beacon of light because he was just so funny. And just thinking about him now, I think about so many of the funny memories we had, and memories that were really centered around fun.
Even though I tried to break it, heaven knows that I can't shake it. Holding on.
This past couple of days has been horrendous. It's been so surreal. I met Tibz in the food and wine industry. I loved his passion. I loved what he stood for. Tibz was all about life, laughter, and living his best life. We shared a passion for food and wine, especially creating safe spaces for brown people, where we wanted to hang out, have fun, enjoy food and wine without being judged, but do it our way. And he did that. I think people will even remember Stella Artois. You know, people started drinking Stella Artois, but drinking it and understanding it in a way that maybe was never understood before. And that's what he stood for. So Tibz, what happened to you is shocking. You were a game changer. You're a magician. You would start things out of nothing, like nothing. Ay, hasla manje. That was Tibz. Uzohlanganisa manje. And just like the magician that he was, poof, Houdini, he disappeared from our lives. So Tibz, while you're up there, polish the glasses and stock up the cellar. Cheers to you.
Hey, Papi. I don't know what to say, my brother. I mean, I remember our first interaction together, you know, when Ruli introduced us. We spent like 7 hours just talking, you know. Hey, and since then, it was really impactful relationship, my brother. You're going too soon. You're going too soon, and it is heavy. It is heavy for me. I can't imagine how heavy it is for those who do it for a long period of time. I'm gonna miss you a lot. I'm gonna miss our conversations. You were larger than life personality, and you are very impactful, puppy. Tibz, till we see each other again, brother. Cheers. Even though I tried to break it, heaven knows that I can't shake it. Holding on. Even.
I greet you all in the wonderful name of our Lord Jesus Christ. This is so difficult for me. Words may seem feeble at this moment. Life is so precious, and death is such a thief. To the Motsoane family, to the Forbes family, our sincere condolences. The depth of your pain we cannot comprehend, but we stand by your side in this time. They may be gone from our arms, but they live in our hearts forever. I met Tebello when I was 14 at the Johannesburg Basketball Academy. And for about 2 years, he was pitching to me to come to Sacred Heart College. He made me feel like a superstar who was a free agent, about to sign a big contract, and to get a big paycheck every end of the term. Boy, was I fooled. But he really sold me with coming to school here. He laid out the whole picture. He told me, you were going to be our Jordan, Ruli was going to be our Ron Harper, and I was going to be your Scottie Pippen. And I said, okay, I can deal with that. I mean, as long as I'm Jordan, I'm just like, okay, I'll take that any day. But this just goes to show you how Tibz's skills started at such a young age. The fact that he could manage personalities. And I always viewed Tibz as social media before social media. He made the world small. He brought us all together. Even at this moment, we're all here because of him. Tibz taught me how to not be afraid to express how I feel, especially about my parents. Tibz made it cool for me to tell my dad, I love you. And when my dad didn't respond, he was like, tell him again. Until he says it back to you. So every moment that I spent with Tibz, he always spoke about his parents and his love for his parents. Even the last day when I saw him, which was last Wednesday, when we were playing, after we played, I dropped Tibz off at home, and he told me he was going to Durban. Little did I know that that's the last time I'm seeing him. But one thing I can tell you is that our last dance on the court was the greatest one. We won about 3 games straight. And, you know, the younger guys that we play with, they always call us OG. And I was like, Tibz, are you going to take that lying down? And he's like, I'll take OG, but I know I've got experience that will last for a very long time. I will never forget you, my friend. I love you, and rest in peace.
Sorry. Good evening. Papa, Mama, good evening. To the Forbes family, good evening. What a pleasure it is to know and to love Tibz. I think in the last couple of years, I've probably called him Tibz twice. I'd call him Zozo. And he'll say, Razo Dazzle. And he'll tell me how mightily handsome he's looking. And that his beard is sharp. We used to have beard wars. As you can see, mine is a little crusty today, Papa. Tibz fascinated me. I was truly in awe of Tibz. And I think a lot of our friends, at least that we are closest to, Tibz almost had a personality as though he's open, but he was incredibly closed. He had the ability to make you feel like he was a party guy, but he really avoided people. And I know that and listening to everybody here today, I realize that Tibz obviously has gone through all stages of life. I mean, to have people that stand with you, that know you from when you were 4. I was quite blessed to have shared moments in the last phase of his life. Tibz was incredibly happy at this time of his life. And I think his 30s, in a lot of ways, represented evolution, which often involves conflicts with people you love. It involves solitude. It involves growth. And those that you love sometimes are used as a conduit, as a vessel for your growth. So in the walk of that conflict or in that growth, I think it's really important that a lot of us release whatever that we might hold about our interaction with Tibz in the last couple of years that could have been better, because I think you were used as a vessel for Tibz to find his true happiness, which is where he was now. Tibz is a lot of things. I mean, we spent more time in Cape Town. He'd complain. He spent a lot of time with Aubrey, with Mo, with the guys down in Cape Town, and that's where would find each other. But I also enjoyed the fact that we managed to have conversations that were true about life. He loved my family. He had a great connection with my wife, and they'll have their own connection. I remember the one time we were at our place in Cape Town, and we were hosting, and Tibz, Buhle insisted that Tibz cook. So they went out to go buy groceries. So I'm now excited. I'm on the roof. I'm waiting for them. They'd gone to the spa. When they come back, there's no cheese board. So I'm like, Tibz, where's the cheese board? So the two of them, they just crack up because they just like, he was so immaculate. He will do the entire thing. He'll have the starters done. He'll have the cheese board. He'll have the champagne. He'll set up the cigars. He was just incredible. And to have been part of his life, to have had some real conversations. But I think I can say it now because I'm not going to get in trouble, but we used to refer to you by name. So I'd say, hey, Mfanagasly. And you'll get so excited. You'll send me photos when you guys are together, when you dressed up. I understood why he dressed the way that he did when I saw your impeccable style. And I just want to release the pain and the anguish that we all feel at this moment. It's been such a difficult week. Tibz flew to Durban to be with me on my birthday. That's why he was there. And my last conversation, I spent the entire Sunday with Tibz in Cape Town, with the rest of the guys, Aubrey, Linda, Joe, Marv. And we had the most incredible time. And when I landed in Cape Town, I called him. I said, where are you? He said, no, I'm at the markets. And there was something about Tibz. He spoke like he's whispering. I don't know if it was like a cool thing or like a Katlehong thing or something. He'd be like, yeah, Razo, you gotta try this. You gotta try this croissant. And I'm like, why is this guy talking like this? You know, I just thought he was the coolest person I've ever met. So I allowed for it, okay? And I landed and I drove to him. And we sat at the market at about 10. We had breakfast. Breakfast turned into lunch. He left to change. We went to the lawns. And, you know, with Tibz would say he's coming to a place sometimes and he will just ghost you, know? And he showed up. We showed up. We sat. The sun went down. It got colder. we still wanted to be together, and everybody said their goodbyes. And it was a beautiful day. He called me on Friday, Razzle, I've landed. Okay, no, that's cool. The whole week he's telling me about his outfits for the birthday. And he called me, I was with Sean Marshall, the designer, he called me. He's like, dog, I'm ready. He's like, dog, for those who are not invited, I'm glad it ain't me. You know, I'm glad it ain't me. So he calls me and he had some stuff on him that I needed. Finally, we speak at about 6:30. I said, Tibz, I was at Mhlanga, at the Pencil. I said, Tibz, come here, we're all having drinks here. He says, no, I gotta go see Keenan. I said, everybody's here, man, because everybody had flown in down. He says, no, I'm gonna go to Florida real quick. I'm gonna see the kid and then I'm gonna come to you. I spoke to him again probably around 9. I called Aubrey, we were supposed to go meet up with him. And when Aubrey and I spoke, I said, Aubrey, come to Mhlanga, we're here. Tibz is gonna come and join us here. Don't go to Florida. Aubrey took an Uber and he came. And then the news just started streaming in. It felt like the world had just stopped. Just nothing made sense. All I could see was that smile. We stopped everything we were doing. We drove with our lives to where he was. And I just want to send my appreciation to, I don't know if Undu is here, Benon Dogos from Do Bars. As soon as the incident had taken place, they were quite quick. They covered Keenan. And they looked after Tibz until we got there. And we were with them the whole time until they were taken about 3:30 in the morning. And that was an incredible experience. But it also showed me the bond that the two of them had. It showed me the love that they had. Tibz loved Keenan. He loved him. He always called him his kid. Even if they were not talking at some point, he'll call me, he'll say, hey, you know, my youngin', hey, but let me go see him. That's him. So I know hindsight makes us think this could have happened. I've asked myself, if there was one flight I hope he missed, it was that one to Durban, Papa. If there was something he would have ghosted me on, I wish it was that one. Tibz ran his race, and what an incredible one. It had drama, Papa, it had parties, it had broken hearts, it had the whole thing. It had tailored suits, it had everything. I mean, this guy, look at us now. I haven't seen so many people that I've known for so many years together for one thing. Even at the end, he's still putting together and curating. Because he was just culture, he was just love. And even if a person like that, you can't help but only just deal with love back. Even if you're not, I would call him and hold him accountable for stuff. And I said, no, you gotta come here, you gotta come talk to me. What happened here? Ah, no, Razzle, sort it out. So, to everyone else, our friends that are here in this room, maybe my parting is this. We might think we have a lifetime. We might think we're gonna sort it out the next day. it's incredibly important that we establish connections in the relationships that we hold with people we love. It's also important that we no longer become bystanders in this country anymore, where people feel like they can just at a moment's pass take away people that are incredibly important to us, not as celebrities, to us as people. The people in this room hold so much influence in different spaces that they occupy. We need to get out of our comfort zones and start holding people accountable that are in charge of our safety, that are supposed to ensure that this country is safe. You can no longer be bystanders in this country anymore. The feeling of anxiety, of not feeling safe, of not knowing what's going to happen, it's just too much. You raised a great son. Thank you so much. Thank you for lending him to us. We loved him a lot. We love you. We thank you. Siyabonga.
Thank you, gents. Ste, thank you for your honesty and for taking us along that difficult journey. It's hard to hear, but I think for me personally, it does give one a sense of closure, whatever that even means. But I'm a little bit closer to closure than where I was earlier on today. So thank you for that. I'm going to call him my king. When he calls me, I say, hey, what's up, my king? Because I see him as somebody that I look up to as much as I looked up to Tibz. You know, when Temba was speaking, I was thinking about the days when they were on the court, and it was Sega, and it was Ruli, and it was Tibz, and it was Gabor, and it was Stretch, and those guys used to just be so hectic. Watching them brought people so much joy. And now I'm going to call the point guard to come and share with us. Before you step up, really, everybody who knows Tibz thought about you the moment they found out. You are loved. Come up, my brother.
Yeah. Rockefeller, we invite you to something epic, you know? Where we hustle out of a sense of hopelessness, sort of a desperation. Through that desperation, we come addicted, sort of like the fiends we accustomed to serving. Where we feel we have nothing to lose, so we offer you, well, we offer our lives. What do you bring to the table? While I'm watching every nigga watching me closely. My shit is butter for
These
the
lights
bread, they wanna
are so
toast
bright.
me. I keep my head, both of them where they supposed to be. Holes to get
You can't imagine how bright these lights are. I don't know how these guys do it on these stages. You know, a lot of what's been said about Tebello just speaks to the amazing person he was. To me, I really don't know where to begin. I mean, I shared so many things with Boy. You know, I shared so many spaces with Boy. But I always used to say to him, you know, you never really own people. You only experience them. And what I can really say to you is my experience of Tebello will forever be the highlight of my life. I joined these guys in 1996, which was a good year. And up until then, I think, you know, I hadn't really felt a sense of belonging. We had some difficulties in my family, but I come from a loving family. I got to Sacred Heart, and
like people attested to before, it's an institution where you are really made to feel welcome. And, you know, it was almost being like in one of those schools with just brilliant kids, you know. All of them very talented, very mindful, very compassionate, and Tebello was really exceptional. Dumi said it earlier, I think the word for such a person is really, he was a savant. Tebello was really a savant. And when I talk to my peers about Tebello, they talk about, you know, all his businesses, all the progress he made with these entrepreneurial ventures. And some call him colloquially, you know, they say he hustled. You know, Tebello didn't hustle. He was a businessman. He had various businesses, platforms that launched industries. I mean, to me, Tebello was a Quincy to many Michael Jacksons. And, you know, I really, really want to say, in as much as that was him, for me, Tebello nanale botu. You know, it was his humanness that shone through. I can give you many stories, but I'll give you one that happened just across from this hall when we were kids. We used to love, you know, as soon as the bell hits, we go play basketball. And Tebz was not lying about practice. Tebello worked on his craft. He worked on his craft. And I was there, you know, we sharpened each other. Sega joined us later. I don't know why he called me Ron Harper. Clown. But anyway, this is when we were little. You know, Tibz is a year older than me, even though we're in the same standard. So I'm a 83, he's a 82. And I remember we were rushing maybe from the science class here all the way to the basketball courts. And a piece of paper, you know, fell out of my pocket. And he looked back and he said to me, we were little. He said, pick that up. I said, so I looked at him. He said, Ruli, pick that up. And I said, someone's going to come pick it up. Tartsamai, let's go play basketball. He looked at me, he said, you sound ignorant right now. What kind of person are you going to become? You know, at that point, I was 13, he was 14. And he gave me a lesson. And he was that sort of person where, whether big or small, he was a very thoughtful, mindful person. And he could really just open himself up and the light would shine on you. And so many lessons we got from him. And I always asked myself, I think about that till today. Why with such authority? And you stand here, you look at the home he comes from, you look at his parents, you look at Tebello, then Tate Motsoane, you know where he comes from, values, humble people, hardworking people, people banaling botu. And to me, you know, when I think about my friend, he was very consistent. And people say consistent, what does that actually mean? Because you could be consistently bad. Tebello was consistently excellent. If he put his mind to a particular task, he would work at it, he would roll up his sleeves. You know, he wasn't scared of a challenge. And for me, a lot of that shone through in everything he did. From when we were youths, right up until last week. Our coach said earlier he respected the game. But I think Bradley also said it. I think what was more important is Tebello loved the process. You know, we used to have many, I never had a useless conversation with Tebello. I don't want to lie to you. Every time I had a moment with him, it was so meaningful. And he would always talk about honing one's craft. Ruli, we need to get there. We need to work at it. What's happening with this? And we're in totally different industries. And I must say in my life, he was pretty consistent. From the minute I met him at this institution, he was there at my many milestones. When I went to Cape Town, I went to the University of Cape Town. I left Johannesburg when I was 16, 17. Tibz joined me down there, you know. He kind of settled me in. We met a lot of great people in Cape Town that way. When I came back, he had his entertainment platform. And I must say, for somebody who doesn't have kids, Tibz raised a lot of people out here, gave a lot of people opportunities. Ste will talk about how he used to talk about his young guys. I think after his parents, he always used to talk about his young guys. He says, I've got these young boys, you know. I need to get them to understand the process. They just see the finished result, you know? And that's how he was. And if we were being a little bit more political, we'd say Tebello really developed and honed a lot of talent in different spheres. And I think that was his contribution, really, not to our lives, but really to this community. That was his contribution to South Africa. You know, the other thing that is really paradoxical, I think Ste talked about, Tebello was public, but he was extremely private. Extremely private. And I think it's because he wanted to protect those he loved the most. You know, Tebello loved his parents so much. In the last days, he was always telling me how he's spending more time with them, or he wants to spend more time with them, and they're up in age. And I said to Ntate Sly when I saw him that he looks like he could still jump in the ring and do 3-4 rounds. He was looking so good, so healthy, and that made me particularly happy because I know all Tebello ever wanted was to make a difference, but also to make sure that his family was good and that his purpose was really felt and understood. I won't dwell on how much love he showed. To me, he was my captain, by the way, on the basketball team. Very vocal. He was my captain in life, supportive. He was my captain, I think, in business. I can even say it here. Every time I opened a business, I was looking through the pictures. Tebello was there. I was sitting with my Shlomo at Hyde Park the other day, and all these young guys are so big. We start to think that they are seniors, but all of them come and they say, oh, I used to buy shoes in your store. Oh, I saw you do this. And every single venture or dream that I had, Tebello really supported it, I must say, for me personally. He was always there. Whether you had a small moment or a big moment, he was a teammate till the end. And I really appreciate that because he was selfless. This is too emotional for me, so I don't want to get into the stories and the life we've lived, but what I can for sure tell you is Tebello did live. Latterly, you know, I've been learning a bit of French, and I always used to say to him, Tebello, "Oh, le bon vivant," you know, or bon vivant. And he's like a lover of life, you know. Tebello was never a person to take light away from anybody. If anything, he would shine light on you, and he would celebrate with you. So today, I know our hearts hurt. Mel and Tate, he's with us. How we lost him is unspeakable, the tragedy. But how we lived with him, I think, is what counts. He was a great friend, a great son, a great motivator till the end. Kaofela boys, probela ka kgotso.
Hey, Tibz. Hey, that was my guy. My business partner, my friend, my confidant, my homie. The guy I often look to get advice, the person that I bounce ideas with, very willing at any time. I know that when he was calling me a witty, he was just going to be telling me his answer or things that he wanted us to do. But the one thing that I know he wanted me to do was carry on tradition. And I know, like everyone who's ever stepped in his path and has had the privilege of working with him, everyone can attest to the fact that that guy was very supportive. He was just a cool guy. A level of finding things. I'm really gonna miss you, dog. I'm gonna carry on tradition, like the blueprints. Don't worry, I got us.
What a life. What a life. My king, thank you, bruv. We've been talking through this week and we've been asking ourselves how we're going to make it through these moments where we try to share how we feel about this person we loved so much. But grace has carried us and fortitude is carrying us still. And we're almost at the end of the program. And I just wanted to share with you guys something that happened in the week after hearing about the passing. Various people sat at a table and asked themselves, if Tibz was an institution, how do we glorify his name beyond time and space? And we thought about a few things, and we came up with this. I'm going to read it to you. And Mama and Papa, this one is for you. Sacred Heart and the friends and family of Tibz is proud to announce its proposal to construct a state-of-the-art food and technology laboratory in honor of Tebello Tibz Motsoane. Tibz was a professional chef, a sportsman, a businessman, an author, and alumni of the school. He completed his primary and high school at Sacred Heart and is remembered by his family and friends as a true visionary and game changer. The proposed food technology laboratory will be built opposite the McCartan Center. The Sacred Heart indoor basketball court will serve as a fitting tribute to Tibz's memory and legacy, his passion for basketball and love for cooking. This food technology center will offer Sacred Heart College students an unparalleled opportunity to explore, experiment, and innovate in food technology. The laboratory will be designed with the latest technology and equipment, providing students with the tools to develop the next generation of food products and a chance to follow in Tibz's footsteps. In Tebello's metric profile, he wrote that his ambition was to make a difference. Throughout his life, he did that. Tibz inspired and impacted many through his entrepreneurial spirit, creative genius, and visionary leadership. He founded Show Love, a company and brand that celebrated diversity and inclusivity, and became AKA's first music manager, paving the way for many aspiring musicians and managers in the industry. According to Tibz, his inspiration for Show Love came from his late uncle's supermarket franchise, Tandabantu, the love for people. He believed in creating a platform for his passion and others who shared the love for hip-hop and dressing up. Tibz also authored a cookbook, The Color of Wine, tasting change, and launched his wine venture atelier with a mission to change the perception of wine amongst the Black community and inspire others to embrace their love for culinary arts. In the same spirit, the Food Technology Laboratory aims to inspire and encourage students to follow their passions and fulfill their dreams, just like Tibz did in his lifetime. Sacred Heart College's vision is to nurture and develop individuals like Tibz to thrive in an ever-changing world. Tibz's life and accomplishments align with that vision. We believe that the Food Technology Laboratory will not only pay tribute to Tibz's memory, but will also inspire and empower future generations and students to pursue their passion and dreams. The project requires 1 million rand to complete, and Sacred Heart College, our friends and family, invite the community to come together to support the construction of the Food and Tech Center in memory of Tibz's legacy. Sacred Heart College has already raised 1.6 million in contributing to that outcome, and therefore it is up to us in this hall, in the chapel, on the digital screens, in the communities, everybody is ever touched and grown with, all the artists, all the businesses, all the brands, every single one must put their shoulder to the wheel and make this happen. We will not fail Tibz because he never failed us. Seeing his name on that wall is exactly what we need to do, to honor him, but most importantly, to honor the great family that he comes from. And with those words, we commit to making sure it will happen and to making sure that Tibz as an institution will live long beyond the 10th of February. Thank you for that. Ladies and gents, my job here is done. We haven't been able to grieve. We didn't even think about some of the things because we just thought we would have the capacity to continue to deliver the work that was expected of us. And so as I step off the stage, I do so hoping that I've honored you as guests, and I've honored the memory of Tibz, and honored the memory of the Forbes family and Keenan. We are not finished yet. There's still a process and journey to continue to lay our friends to rest, and more information will come at a point. My parting shot is, Tibz said to me always, "Wake up and fight, dog. Wake up and fight, dog." I'll never forget that. I will never forget that, because in fighting, we act, and in acting, we impact, and in impacting, we make a contribution in this world, and that's what you could all ask. So I'm going to ask Ntate Genius from the family to come and do a vote of thanks, and thereafter, we will have Malehlo Honolo, who is going to close off with a prayer and some announcements. Thank you again for being patient with us. It would have been absolutely impossible to do this without your patience and understanding that we can't rush the process of telling a story about this magnificent human being called Tebello. On that point, thank you for respecting me as the MC, and I'll see you on the streets.
Thank you, Tibz. Good evening. Sure. And what an evening. Heart's a bit lighter for all the beautiful words. I think first and foremost, to introduce myself, I am Genius. I'm Tebello's cousin. Our mothers are sisters, along with Stephen's mother. I'd like to extend our deepest condolences to the Forbes family. Literally, Sikalanan. They've lost a son, a brother, a cousin, a nephew, a partner, a father. Tukara, walk the streets with your head held up high, little girl. Your daddy is and will always be a pioneer in South African and indeed continental hip-hop. May the Almighty bless you exceedingly above and beyond. Tibz, Zido, Tibzozo, entrepreneur, chef, all these names that have been bantered around tonight. To us, he was known as Mpompo. And no one said this with more resonance than his mom. Growing up, we'd spend time in Katlehong, and they used to come to us, to Durban. And like kids, we played games. We used to play Shaga Zulu, imitating the famous TV series with Hendrik Cale. There's a great picture of him when he's wearing a Beshiak. My claim to fame is I introduced him to basketball, sorry, coach, and the team. But I dare not challenge him to a one-on-one as he towered and his skills improved way above mine. We also played cricket, believe it or not. I was much better at this game than he was. But as cruel kids can be, I used to pepper him with like ear-screaming bounces and Yorkers, to the shout of his mother, Hey, Jeannie, that's my home name. Uzolimaza umpumpu. I may never get to bruise his ankles again, but your last moments were pain enough. But you shall always be our mpumpu. He may has come across as aloof, too cool for school, quiet. But now we know this whole time he was thinking, planning, envisioning, creating. When you tell him a joke, however, his entire body would quiver in laughter and splendor. You know that. We urge the authorities to speedily bring the culprits to book. The gunmen, yes, but more importantly, those who ordered the hit. Please spare us a Sanzo fiasco. Bring credibility and hope to the criminal justice system, to our families, and many people who have suffered similar fates. The Motsoane family would like to convey a very heartfelt thank you to all the speakers tonight. You were incredible. To the fans, to the entertainment industry, to the creative and culinary community. Your messages were overwhelming, comforting. We can't thank you enough. I can tell you now that Dadenme had no cooking clue that the son was this famous. Pun intended. No idea. So, but obviously I've followed him in the streets, been involved with him on social media. They had no idea how big his son is. This is how big his son is, me, in that. Thank you, Ruli, and your team, Tebz. Thank you, Mrs. B, the Sacred Heart community. Organized a beautiful, touching, and befitting event for a really fantastic and wonderful gentleman. As a parting thought, I'd like to take a bit of words from this extract. Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. One short sleep past, we wake eternally, and death shall be no more. Death, thou shalt die. From what I see here today, what we've witnessed over the past few weeks, death be not proud. Till we meet again in Mpumpu, show love, one love. Thank you all.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Malshonolo Ngatane. I've been tasked with closing and praying. So yeah, I'm also one of Tebello's childhood friends. Mama Niniwe, as she saw me, she was like, yeah, Lunaba grade 1. So yes, I was in class with Tebello since grade 1 until we finished matric. I'm going to just give everybody an update. When we finish here, which is in a few minutes, we've got some refreshments that are set up in the McCartan Center. So that's just behind the chapel. And I think that's quite a fitting place for us to be considering the love for basketball that Tebello had. So that's where we're going to be after this. I'd like us to please just bow our heads as I say a closing prayer for all of us. Ntata rona mahodimo ne ke leboha hore re kgone hore re kopane mona kaofela o tisitse dipelo tsa rona mme o re file le matla hore re kgone hore re etse mosebetsi o re tshwanetseng hore o etse ke rapedisa lapa la ha Motsoane le la ha Forbes ke re o ba fe matla o ba gantshetse o ba tshware o ba fe matla a hore ba kgone hore ba robatse bana ba bona moo ba tla robalang la ho qetela. Mme ke batla ho beha mme Niniwe le ntate Sly matsohong a hao hore le dipelo tsa bona o kgone hore le hore o ba phumulele le dikeledi tseo re sa di boneng le tseo re di bonang hore ba tsebe hore kwena o tla ba thusang hona matsatsing a le dilemo tse tlang. Amen. We've just got a short announcement. We've got a musical item actually that is in honor of Tebello, an AKA. The track is called Home Alone, that Mikasa actually recorded with AKA. But the hymn that will be rendered by Moti of Mikasa, this is called Home Alone, and it's from all of Tebello's friends.
Sorry, it's Abide With Me. That's going to be the song that is going to be performed by Moti to honor both AKA and Tebello. Ladies and gents, if we can stay seated and allow for the family to exit, if we may stand up and honor them in the same way as we did.